Hey, what's going on? Anthony here with ABS Fitness. Today we're talking about how to build muscle. Building muscle is a lot like building a fire. Fires have a fire triangle and they need heat, fuel, and oxygen in equal ratios in order to get the biggest fire possible. If one of those components is lacking or less than the others, it's going to prevent you from getting the biggest fire you can. Building muscle works the same way, so I've made a gains triangle here. We have stimulus, recovery, and nutrition that all need to be on point in order to maximize our gains. So we're going to break down each component and show you guys how to get the most gains possible. Up first is our stimulus. And stimulus is going to be the tension and duration of stress we put on our muscles. It's going to combine with our recovery here to kind of form our split and our program. And I'll talk more about our programming in other videos. I'll mention a little bit down here in our recovery, but for this video we're talking about like how to perform a set to build muscle. So with our volume and our load, those are going to be our two components that make up our stimulus. And for here, we're talking about volume as it pertains to like a rep count during a set, and load is going to be the weight, and our volume is going to be dictated by our time under tension. We want to be able to get a time under tension about 30 to 60 seconds, and that's going to have a rep count sufficient enough to get that 30 to 60 seconds. Then we need to have our load, which our load is entirely relative. There's no such thing as a heavy weight in the gym. It's all relative, because 185 with bad form, where you just let the weight kind of come down, bounce it off the chest, get it up, don't control the way down, it's not really putting much stress on your muscles. It's not going to put the same sort of stress that 135, it's 50 pounds lighter, but you're controlling that weight down. You take about 2 to 3 seconds to get down to your chest and then bring it back up. That is actually heavier than 185. Now I sound a little bit weird, but weight is entirely relative because we want to think of it as tension on our muscles, not about absolute weight of the bar. Your muscles do not care about the weight in the bar. They care about the tension and the stress you put on them. So controlling that weight down puts significantly more stress than letting gravity do it. So the way we want to dictate our load is going to be what gets us to proximity to failure. So our volume is picking a rep count that's going to get us to 30 to 60 seconds, and then we want to pick the appropriate weight that we can control the way down, take the reps slowly, and then get as close to failure. Because if we get 30 to 60 seconds time under tension, but it doesn't really challenge us, we don't get close to failure, we're not going to grow. So similarly, if we don't get that 30 to 60 seconds time under tension, because we do like 2 reps and we get close to failure, we're still going to get stronger, but we're trying to build muscle here. So we're trying to build muscle, we want higher time under tension. Because a set of 3 might take you, 10 seconds to do, but it's under that time under tension to really, optimize that muscle growth. So for building muscle, the rep ranges can vary significantly because the science kind of tells us 5 to 30 is going to build us that muscle optimally. So there's some rules we can kind of use so we can find the right rep ranges, because it's going to be a little bit individual. And I think the best thing you can do is what helped you mentally push to failure better, because those two factors are what dictates how we build muscle. It's that time under tension and proximity to failure, more than some absolute number of like pushing heavier weight or doing a certain amount of reps. But we can use certain guidelines to help us find what works. So a heavier exercise, and by heavier I mean more muscles involved, so a squat or a deadlift recruits most muscles in your body. It's hard to get really high reps on these exercises because you're going to be winded, and we want our muscles to be exhausted. We don't want our lungs to be exhausted. So we generally want about 6 to maybe 8 reps for these more heavy compound lifts that recruit more muscles. And when we get into a kind of moderate exercise like a bench press or a lat pull down, still a compound lift, still recruits a lot of muscles, but it's not going to be as much as a whole body like squats and deadlifts. So that 8 to 12 reps will kind of put us in that sweet spot. Plus, they're a little bit shorter range of motions generally than something like a squat or a deadlift. Then up last is like isolation work. So like bicep curls, tricep pushdowns, those we want about 10 to 20 reps. They're a little bit shorter. They're a lot easier to cheat on, right? Because you can just kind of push the machine down and you're going to finish a tricep extension. With a squat, it's a lot harder to kind of go down and pop right back up. So there's kind of some like just inherent things that are going to make those exercises quicker if you do them incorrectly. So the biggest thing too is how big is that exercise. Like an exercise like a shrug is a little shorter range of motion, so we want to aim for that higher side of things. I do shrugs about 15 to 20 reps because they're so small, I want to keep that time under tension up. Because it's a lot harder to take those things slowly. Even if I go really slow, I'm not really moving anywhere. So we want to think of having a rep count of about 4 to 5 seconds, because if what we're going to do is come up for about a second, hold for about half to 1 second, and then we're going to go down for about 2 to 3 seconds. So if we were to take 10 reps, 4 seconds, that's 40 seconds. And what I want you to do is time your sets. Because once you get into the bar, it seems like you're going for this long duration, but then you look at your timer and you're like, it's 20 seconds. I did 12 reps. And you start to realize the weight just does not, or the time just does not seem the same when you have weight on you. Your brain's going to want to tell you, I want to stop this because it's a little bit uncomfortable, but we want to time it so that way we can't let our brain win. The time will tell us whether we're doing it correctly or not. So try to kind of keep that in mind, right? And then adjust based on how you feel that you can get closer to failure while also keeping that 30 to 60 seconds time under tension. Up next is recovery. And recovery consists of 2 components. We have our rest and we have sleep. And we actually grow outside of the gym while we're recovering. And sleep is one of the most overlooked portions of health and fitness because it's the deepest form of recovery, but a lot of people just kind of treat it as like, oh, you just go to bed at the end of the day. And a lot of people kind of argue about like optimal times to go to bed or wake up, and I don't think that really matters. I think stressing about it is probably worse than when you go to bed. As long as you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep and you're waking up and going to bed at a consistent time, you're golden. And the other thing we want to remember is have good sleep hygiene. If you want to learn kind of more about sleep hygiene and kind of set up good habits for yourself, you can check out this app. It's called CBTI. It's made by the VA department. I've used it personally. I thought it was pretty helpful. And it helps you kind of track when you're going to bed, find a good time where you go to bed and wake up, and just tell you more about sleep hygiene. But kind of the basics that I'll touch here are going to be, we want to kind of get our bedroom to just be associated with going to bed. We don't want to set up all these distractions in our bed. We don't want to have like a TV. We don't want to scroll Instagram in our bed. We want to keep our bedroom just to sleep and sex. That's it. Then we also want to keep our room dark and quiet. If we have all these lights and all these noises going on, it's going to keep us up. So check out the app. I've used it personally. I think it's worthwhile. And I think it'll help you out if you're trying to get on a better sleep habit. Then we have our rest. So rest is going to be paired with our stimulus to form our programs. And I'll talk more about it in a programming video, but the basics of it are going to be is when you lift, you need to give your time to rest because muscles break down and then grow back. And we want to give them about 72 hours between body parts. That way they have that time to recover before we put more stress on it again. So if we have like a push-pull legs, what we're going to do is hit push one day, then pull the next day, then legs the next day, then we're going to rest, and then we can hit push again. Because we split it up so each muscle group is getting hit 4 days apart. Now we can hit different muscle groups back-to-back days, but the same muscle groups we want to give that time to rest. We'll talk a little bit more about it in the programming video because there's more to it depending on things like training status, age, and the kind of routine you're following. But in general, the guideline is 72 hours of rest between muscle groups. Last in our little gains triangle here is nutrition. And nutrition is going to work with our recovery to be the repair side of things, as well as being paired with our stimulus to get our caloric and our protein needs. So up first, we have water, and our body is pretty much made mostly of water, and muscles as well are made mostly of water. So we need water to help fuel that muscle growth. And water is really simple in how we're going to get it. First, when we wake up, we want to drink about a glass or two because we've just been fasting for about 8 hours, so we're a little bit dehydrated, so we want to get that water going. And then throughout the day, we want to make sure our urine is clear. If our urine's clear, we're hydrated. Because urine is just a mix of water and compounds. When there's not enough water, there's more compounds, so it comes out kind of stale and yellow and maybe even smells a little bit. We add the water to it, and now it dilutes it, and it comes out clear. So just use that as your test. Is it coming out yellow? You need more water. Is it coming out clear? You're good to go. And it's really important, but it's also really simple. So wake up, drink that glass or two, and keep that urine clear throughout the day. Next, our food and our protein. So we can think of our caloric needs and our protein needs as 2 separate needs. Our caloric needs are going to be dictated by how much cardio and how active we are through the day. we're doing more cardio and we maybe have an active job, or maybe we bike everywhere or walk everywhere, we're going to have higher calories. But to build muscle, we're going to need higher protein. So you don't need higher calories to build muscle. That's kind of a myth people have, where they go on this bulk and then they get this insane amount of calories, but those calories turn to body fat. They don't work to build muscle. The only exception would be if you are like a advanced bodybuilder, then you might want to be in a calorie surplus to build muscle. But for 99% of lifters, and even just gym bros, doesn't matter if you think you've reached that point, you probably haven't unless you're like a professional bodybuilder. So what's going to happen, I've done this several times, is I just did this recently actually. You're going to eat extra and you're going to get fat, and then you're going to have to lose the weight, and that's where I am now. So now I'm paying for it because now I have to cut again, and cutting sucks. So just do yourself a favor and don't worry about that. Just get your protein needs up. You can actually build muscle in a deficit if you keep your protein high. So meet your caloric needs to match the stimulus that you're doing as far as your calories go, from cardio and physical activity. Then, depending on your goals, is going to dictate how much protein you want. If you're more of an endurance athlete, you maybe do triathlons and you're not really worried about building a lot of muscle, but you still want to, build up the muscle for your endurance sports, then you want about 0.5 grams of protein to 1 pound of lean body weight. So if we're trying to really build that muscle optimally and we're really trying to pack on the mass, we want about 1 gram per 1 pound of lean body weight. And the thing is we only need it per lean pound of body weight. Because if you're 180 versus 250, but have the same amount of lean tissue, you need the same amount of protein. Because the only difference really is you're just fatter than you're leaner here. So you don't really need much because it's your lean body mass that's really dictating it. So technically the number is a little bit lower. The reason I say 1 gram is because it's a safeguard, right? If you don't hit it for one day, right? Maybe you go out to eat with some people and you just can't track your calories as well, you're still on the safe side of things. So it's a little bit lower, but we built in a safeguard so you're good to go. So just kind of remember, get your protein in to get your muscles and get your calories in to get your energy. The only exception to where you might want more protein than this is going to be in a calorie deficit. So whenever you're cutting weight, what's happening is you're not getting enough carbohydrates and fats to use as fuel. So occasionally your body's going to use that protein. So we want to up our protein needs about 10 to 20% during that cut, just to be on the safe side. And otherwise, that 1 gram per 1 pound is the golden rule. But if we need about 150 grams of protein, add on about 15, maybe 30, and we'd be good to go. To wrap this whole thing up, we want to get our stimulus right, so we have our volume and our load meet in the middle, so we can get 30 to 60 seconds time under tension and get as close to failure as possible. Then for recovery, we want to get consistent 7 to 8 hours of sleep, same time we go to bed, same time we wake up, and build up good sleep hygiene. Then we want to get about 72 hours of rest between body parts to let those muscles recover. And for nutrition, we want to get that 1 to 2 glasses of water in the morning and then keep our urine clear throughout the day. We want to match our caloric needs to match our cardio and our physical activity. And then for our protein needs, if we're an endurance athlete, we want about 0.5 grams per 1 pound of lean body weight. And if we're trying to build muscle, optimally, we want to get 1 gram per 1 pound of lean body weight. The only difference is in a calorie deficit, we want to add about 10 to 20%, because that protein can sometimes get used as fuel since we don't have enough calories. So stop watching my videos and go get your ass in the gym. See ya.